Today is extra, extra special. I have the fantastic opportunity to interview the former president and founder of the Nutritional Therapy Association, Gray Graham. Hi, Gray.
Hi, Angela. Thanks
um,
for having me. I'm really excited about talking about this today.
oh, not a problem. It's an absolute honor for me to have you. So, if you would, for our audience, I'm sure some of the people who watch this are definitely going to know you, but some of them won't. So, if you could just kind of introduce yourself and talk to us a little bit about the founding of the NTA, that would be great.
Yeah, you bet. Well, yeah, really the story. I thought when I saw your other interviews, in regards to pre and postnatal nutrition and things like that, I thought, oh, I want to get interviewed because that's really one of the subjects I have a lot of passion about. And really the whole NTA story started with conception of my son. And so I'll just, a little introduction for the people that don't know me. My name is Gray Graham, and I'm the founder of N.T.P. I'm also the president of Biotics Research Northwest. I've been in the nutrition business now for about 27 years, and yeah, it's been a great run. I'm kind of semi-retired now, but I stay as active as I can. I love to do interviews like this. Yeah, the whole story. And I'll try not to. My stories can get a little carried away, so I'll try and be succinct. I'd actually had a whole career earlier in my life, from 22 to 35. I had kind of a corporate sales job. It was actually in photography. It was in the map making business, and it had me traveling all over the country all the time. And I spent a lot of time on the road. And so, like many people, it was basically like a truck driver, just eating bad food and spending long hours in the car and things like that. And then also on top of that, my job was, I had a lot of responsibility. I ended up being head of marketing and development and sales for this kind of medium-sized map company out of Detroit. Anyway, at the end of that run, I was 35 years old. I was pretty burnt out, and so I took a few years just kind of messing around with boats. And I knew I'd have to sooner or later get a real job. I worked as a yacht broker. I worked as a scuba dive charter captain. I had my own little boat. I named it after my wife. It's always a good idea if you're going to buy a boat. So it's Joyride, yes. Scuba dive. And anyway, that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, but it wasn't like a job I would say that had great purpose. I mean, it's wonderful taking people out on, diving adventures and, messing around with boats and stuff. But anyway, to kind of fast forward, when I turned 40, my wife and I, we wanted to have a family. She was, at that time, she was 36. And I thought, well, before we do that, we've always wanted to go on a big sailing trip. So we'll go on a big sailing trip first, and then we'll start our family. And so this trip, like 2 to 5 years, we kind of, put it in that range. Well, lo and behold, about 5 months into the trip, all of a sudden my wife, who never was seasick a day in her life, is all of a sudden she's seasick, or so she thought. And so as it turned out, our plans got way late a little bit. I mean, it was really the greatest blessing in my life. I certainly would have liked to go on sailing for 2 to 5 years, but we were already kind of pushing the envelope. So all of a sudden we're down in the Sea of Cortez, and Joy's pregnant, and life has kind of changed in a very exciting way. And so she couldn't stay on the boat. The motion was doing her in. And so she flew home, and a friend of mine took us a month to get the boat back, from the Sea of Cortez back to San Diego. In the meantime, she was going about having just a complete, total miserable pregnancy.
Oh.
Then any worse. By the time I got home, it was getting worse and worse. And, and then kind of fate intervened. I called an old friend of mine who's a chiropractor, and actually he was my best customer on my dive charter boat. When I got out of business, him and my other best customer bought the boat. So it was great. So I called up my friend, Dr. Miller, Chris, and his wife, and Joy and I were all had gotten to be really good friends. And I told him, I said, Chris, I really messed up now. I said, I'm gonna have to get a real job. Joy's pregnant. No more messing around on boats. I need to find something to do. And he looked at me and he said, I know exactly what you should be doing. I go, what's that? He said, I have a friend who's a doctor who has a company that sells supplements to healthcare practitioners, mostly doctors, acupuncturists, things like that. And I said, God, that sounds really interesting. I said, I don't know anything about that, but I guess it doesn't hurt to go talk to him. And so I had this interview with the man who's going to become my boss and my mentor, and mine and my wife's kind of nutritional consultant,
Right.
and chiropractor. So I went and I interviewed with Dr. Curry, and at the end of the interview, he said, well, what do you think about this opportunity? And I said, gosh, it sounds so interesting. It sounds really interesting. I said, the only thing I just have to admit, I don't know anything about clinical nutrition. And he just kind of chuckled to himself and he says, don't worry. He said, the doctors don't either. He said, in 6 months, you'll know about clinical nutrition than most doctors. And that was incredulous to me, because we all believe that, doctors have all this wisdom about everything to do with health. And some actually do, chiropractors and naturopaths more than medical doctors, but even the education they get on nutrition in school for chiropractic is pretty limited, and it's pretty much following more along the dietetics line. So anyway, he said, if you are willing to study and make a commitment, he said, I'm willing to give it a shot. He said, let's do it. And so I was excited about it. And then the very next thing we did, I said, gosh, now that I had your attention too, my wife's pregnant and she's having a miserable pregnancy. She's got terrible arthritis. She's into her second trimester and she's still horribly morning sick, and she has like no energy. My wife is the most bubbly, vivacious, outgoing person in the world, and this pregnancy has reduced her to like a shadow of her own self. She's got no energy, terrible migraines, and her digestion hurts all the time. She's still so sick she can't eat anything. And he said, okay, so here's what I want you to do. He said, I want you to have her fill out this form. It was the symptom survey form, which is kind of a predecessor to the nutrition assessment questionnaire. The nutrition assessment questionnaire is much more sophisticated and gives you more information. The symptom survey form is a good form also.
Right, that's the app that we use now, right?
Right. Yeah. It was a predecessor to that. One of my projects later was to take that information and the information that we had from some other questionnaires and kind of make the grand questionnaire. The work's never done. I'm just anxious to get my knack again. There's a couple things I'd like to improve. I think it's great and it could be improved. So he said, fill this out and come up and see me. And he had a home office, and we'll check her out, see what we can do. So take my wife up to Dr. Curry's house, and he looks at her questionnaire. He's got it in front of him, and he's going, yeah, flips it over. It was just two-sided. He goes, okay. And then he starts poking around on her. He said, how's this feel right here, the HCL point? And she goes, oh, God, that really hurts, And he did Murphy sign, and he did checked her leg lengths and her Chapman reflexes for her adrenals, and that was pretty much what he did. And to be honest, he did palpate them, but then he's a very, very talented muscle tester. So he muscle tested supplements and stuff. And he said, okay, here's the deal. He said, I know exactly what you need. I'm going to put you on, I believe it was 3 different supplements, maybe it was 4. And let's see how you feel in a week. And so he put her on hydrochloric acid supplement for digestion. He put her on a beet juice product for her, what was a standard process, so it's not the same now, but they're very equivalent. He put her on an adrenal product for her adrenals, and I just can't tell you what an amazing kind of transformation it was.
In a week.
In a week, she immediately, as soon as she started taking the adrenals, she got her energy back. I want to talk later, I want to talk more about adrenals because I think it's so critical. But just for kind of this story, and her morning sickness went away almost immediately, and she quit having the gastritis. The only thing is she in general, the media and mainstream medicine and mainstream dietetics, they beat up supplements, so they don't do much good. And this, but I had a miracle for myself. And then he also put me on some things also. I didn't have the same types of problems, but I definitely had my digestion was definitely, not that great, that like most guys, I was gaseous and didn't have a lot of pain, but, it's probably still, kind of an uncomfortable situation, particularly for poor wife having to live with me.
Right.
And so anyway, I had this tremendous conviction, and then the next thing that kind of came about was like, well, why didn't our OBGYN know this stuff? Here's a chiropractor. People don't even believe in chiropractors, and he was able to identify and take action for these things that were like really hurting her. And it was a 15-minute visit. We might have talked a little bit longer than that. It was basically a 15-minute visit. And really, we'd already asked the OBGYN about these same symptoms. And he said, these are pretty normal, signs of pregnancy. And then a little OBGY humor. He said, oh, but don't worry, in my experience, it never lasts more than 9 months. Chuckled a little bit. And he said, well, no, he said, it should get better as the pregnancy goes along. And of course, it usually does. But there's other consequences to not addressing these things. So I was very happy to be able to find this solution for my wife, but I was also kind of angry that why wouldn't a medical doctor know this? Why would a chiropractor know something?
Yes.
Why would a chiropractor know this? And a medical doctor who specialized in babies and OBGYN, why wouldn't they know this? And I thought, well, I'm going to address this. As it turned out, I went and looked at my accounts. I inherited all these accounts, and my job was to help them out, make it better and stuff. And of my top 20 accounts, 4 or 5 of them were medical doctors, but there were very few medical doctors in the rest of the list. The few medical doctors I had were big accounts. And I thought, that's what I'm going to go start calling them medical doctors. I'm going to go call them the medical doctors who do use nutritional therapy, and then to find out, what motivated them, and then I'm going to go motivate everybody else. This is where I'm always a big thinker. Never really think the consequences out, but
That's actually really pretty smart, and I'm excited to dive into this. Why you went to see the medical doctor part. Can you for 1 second just tell people still, like to this day, the amount of training that regular MDs are getting regarding nutrition?
I mean, I think the last thing I heard was they get 4 hours, but it's not even good. It's 4 hours of bad nutrition. They'd be better off with none compared to what they're still basically teaching: low fat, limited animal products. Not that that's necessarily bad, but the low fat thing is a nightmare. It's killing us. Grain-based diet. Everybody's, be sure to get your 5 servings of grains and, plenty of fruit, and, it's a glycemic diet. And that's what they learn. Back to the doctors, there are 5 doctors, and they virtually all had the same story. And here's how it kind of works. This is how, at that time, how a medical doctor got into nutritional therapy, and about the only way they got into it. Now it's much broader now. Now some are doing it just because they know it's the right thing to do, and they're seeing men get results and stuff like that. But basically the story is that they or somebody that they loved had a problem that medicine could not help. Okay, in fact, actually, I'm just thinking now about Dr. Wahls, Terry Wahls, who's one of my heroes. And this is her story too. She got MS, and none of the answers to MS, they have no answers for MS. So she went outside, found these fabulous answers, and then she brought it back into her practice, and now she's sharing it with everybody. And this was the same basic story that these doctors told me. They or somebody they loved had a problem. Medicine couldn't help them, wouldn't help them. There was no medical help for these problems. So then they were willing to go outside their paradigm and find something that would help their loved ones. By the way, they may love their patients, but patients didn't count. They would never go outside the paradigm for a patient. got to be them or somebody they love very dearly, a close family member usually. And then when they would get these great results and they'd save the person that they love or themselves, then they would bring it back into the practice and they would be very successful because people were wanting this type of help. And people still believe, and believe then even more so, that medical doctors are all knowing. And so when people would find a medical doctor that would do natural therapies, they gravitated. All these people, they will change when the public demands change, and the public will demand change.
Yeah.
And so 27 years, I've seen it shift a long ways. And there's so many more practitioners now that people can go see. There's more naturopaths, there's more chiropractors doing nutritional therapy, and of course, there's a whole cadre of thousands of nutritional therapy practitioners, N.T.Ps and N.T.Ps, where people can turn to. People are really starting to, in spite of still the negative publicity we get from mainstream TV and from the medical profession, and even from the conventional nutritionists, people are really understanding that there's some really big answers to be had in nutritional therapy. So
there really are. And I don't want to interrupt you, but just because you mentioned Terry Wahls now has an FNTP, a graduate from the Nutritional Therapy Association, running her nutrition portion of her clinic, isn't she?
Yeah, absolutely. And she's been she's going to be speaking at the conference again this year.
Oh, awesome.
Be her third time. I love her. She's the only speaker we've ever had that got a standing ovation before she started and after she. I mean, her story is so powerful, and it just as I was telling my beginning story, that's typical. It would have been if Dr. Wahls had not had MS, she would have not have gone down that journey that she's gone down, and she would not have. The thousands of people that have now gotten help as a result of her books and her lectures and her clinic, and the research that she's doing and things like that.
Yeah,
so it was a blessing. We weren't trying to have a baby at that time, but he was, from the second we knew that she was pregnant, it was like the biggest blessing in our life. But she had these foundational weaknesses. Her adrenals were tired, and pregnancy exacerbates adrenal exhaustion, and her digestion challenge and digestion challenges digestion. Her gallbladder was a mess. And, that's the nausea, we know from Chinese medicine for the last 5,000 years that nausea is, gallbladder / liver. I didn't know any of this stuff then. Of course, Dr. Curry, and the amazing thing is that on this very first visit with him, so many of the things that I've been teaching now for 27 years, the things that he did, he made it look so simple. It actually is kind of simple, just to address these foundational issues and change somebody's life. So I really got on a crusade, and I actually got, my wife got a chiropractor. We'd moved up to Los Angeles, that was my territory, and Dr. Curry was in San Diego. So we got a really wonderful chiropractor who specialized in pre and postnatal nutrition, and she got her nutrition through her pregnancy and kept her adjusted. And when our son was born, Dr. Arcady came to the hospital and gave him an adjustment when he was 1 day old.
Oh, wow.
He was actually, it was his second day of life. He was born about 2 in the afternoon. She came the next day. And that, I want a little shout out for chiropractor, because, people say, you like chiropractor, bless your baby. It was the most wonderful thing. He would take the breast on one side, when she would move to the other side, he would be all agitated, and he wouldn't take the breast. So Katie came in, and she took our little baby. My wife was terrified, but she trusted Dr. Arcady because she had been adjusting her for all these months. And so she put little Grayson on her shoulder, and she just very gently took 2 fingers and went down the upper thoracics, and then she put her finger inside of his mouth and did some cranial adjustments. And then she took each legs and adjusted his hips. And it was a completely different presentation. He went from a balled up little baby that wouldn't suckle on one side. He just spread out, legs out, completely comfortable. And she said, now try both breasts. So he immediately, the side that he wouldn't do, he was now latching on and and it was a miracle. One of the things that Dr. Curry had me do was go down and meet Patricia Conley, who was the executive director of the Price Pottinger Nutrition Foundation. And I spent quite a bit of time down there. Pat, we talk all things nutrition and everything about Weston Price and Dr. Pottinger. That's when I first came up with the idea that someday I'd write a book on epigenetics. The word epigenetics wasn't even invented then, but someday I would write a book on Pottinger's cat related to people, because it seemed so obvious to me that the same thing that had happened to the cats was now happening to humans, this degenerative process that takes place over several generations of having the wrong food and the wrong environmental factors. So I asked her, she asked me one time, she said, you know when the most important 9 months of a baby's life are, don't you? And I go, yeah, in utero, you know, when they're in their mother's uterus. She goes, no, the 9 months before they're conceived, those are the most important 9 months. And so first thing I always do for any couple that was having trouble conceiving is zinc, because at least 50% of it's kind of unfair. It is the society we live in. Whenever a couple can't get pregnant, it's always, oh God, poor woman, she's having a hard time conceiving. Well, at least 50% of the time, it's not the woman, it's the man. You know, he has improper sperm motility, usually secondary to extreme zinc deficiency. And I don't know if it's in the class anymore. You haven't actually sat through the whole class in recent years, but I used to have a slide that showed a study that was done in France where with infertile couples, and they put them both on an aqueous zinc solution, just like the one that we use. And these are chronically infertile people, and within like 6 months, 60 or 70% of them had conceived just by adding zinc. Just by adding zinc. That's way better statistics than any fertility clinic has, you know.
And much less invasive.
Yeah, far less invasive. And so you're not only solving the immediate problem, but you've got all these side effects, which are, you know, better visual acuity, better taste, better hearing, better medical pathways. I mean, zinc's involved in, I don't know, at least a couple hundred different enzymes.